Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. As Taiwan President Lai Ching-te begins his first official overseas trip to Pacific Island allies with stopovers in Hawaii and Guam, the country's defense ministry said it is carefully watching the movements of a Chinese aircraft carrier. Security sources in Taiwan say the latest intelligence assessments indicate Beijing could launch new war games as early as this weekend. Why are these layovers causing an angry reaction from China? And what is the US's highest military commander in Hawaii saying about American preparedness for any Chinese aggressions? With us to discuss this are Tony Hu, former US Department of Defense Senior Director for China, Taiwan and Mongolia, and Ronan Fu, Academia Sinica Institute of Political Science Assistant Research Fellow. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today.
Thank you.
China has lashed out at President Lai's US layovers because it believes they confer sovereignty on Taiwan, which Beijing claims is part of China. China's foreign ministry said on December 1st it strongly condemned US support for Lai's visit, would take resolute, forceful measures to safeguard the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and that it had lodged a complaint with the US. Tony, let me come to you first. So do you read these resolute and forceful measures as essentially the third iteration of the joint sword exercises?
It could be. It could be. However, I think it's important for Taiwan, the people in Taiwan, to understand these joint sword exercises are nothing but shows because it doesn't have a lot of military value. If they want to impose a blockade, they can successfully impose it, and Admiral Paparo actually said that, right? So as long as their main purpose is to intimidate Taiwan, as long as Taiwan is not being intimidated, then it's meaningless. So my view is, yeah, it could be if they want to, and the more they do this type of things, actually, it brings more risk to themselves. Because this type of operation, it's inevitable something might happen, some kind of accident, some type of mechanical failure, and that type of thing. So to me, sure, even if they do it, the main thing to do is not to be intimidated because it just make them waste their efforts.
But it's also practice for them though, Tony, isn't it? So in terms of circling around Taiwan, practicing so that the joint forces practicing essentially to either invade Taiwan or blockade Taiwan. So actually, how can that be meaningless?
Because the kind of practice they're doing, it's not something they would do during wartime. Okay,
if they want to invade Taiwan, wouldn't be that what we see
right.
in A and C
because,
of joint sword.
Right. What they did was they encircled Taiwan, practicing simulated blockade, which, as I said, Taiwan is so big, it's very difficult to execute a successful blockade. Therefore, what they're practicing is not truly something, if they want to annex Taiwan, attack Taiwan, occupy Taiwan, they can't do that with the things that they do now, from my personal military assessment, because those are the things that takes a while to take effect. During the time when they're blockading, then Allied forces are arriving, the forward deploying, and the convoy and things to break the blockade will happen. And so they cannot successfully conquer Taiwan using a blockade. Therefore, what they're doing now, which is practicing possible blockade, it's not useful in military terms, because in reality, if they want to have a successful attack on Taiwan, they have to do it very quickly before outside forces can help can arrive to help Taiwan. Therefore, what they're doing now is not a successful strategy. So they're practicing something that it wouldn't be useful in real effort to conquer Taiwan.
And Ronan, let's take a look at the other side, which is US Indo-PACOM, or the US military's preparations for any such Chinese aggressions. What evidence do we see that they are preparing?
Yeah, so they actually have made it very clear, the commander-in-chief, basically they want to make sure that the U.S. has some contingency plans ready, so that if there's something to break out, then the U.S. and also by implication Taiwan will be ready. But I actually want to jump in and to echo Tony that historically, when the term or the phrases were utilized by China, usually that means that they are going to engage in some military responses. Here's a key term: short of war. They are not going to initiate a war right now at the very moment. And secondly, actually the reason why Tony mentioned that is a show, because it's for the Chinese side, they need to find a way out for their anger out. So it's like an expression of anger and fear and perhaps frustration, right? So it's a show to the domestic constituents or domestic audience that the Chinese side or the Chinese authority is doing something so that they are not going to let the U.S. and Taiwan to cultivate, deeper ties. And internationally, they also want to send a message that we are really, really angry about this. But I agree with Tony that it's a show. But we also have to be aware that, this kind of show will sometimes, lead to some grave implications, not in favor of China. That is right. What we can,
And Tony, what do you make of the assessments from a few sources? This is quoted on Reuters about war games possibly kicking off at the weekend. Now, President Lai is back in Taiwan on Friday, December 6th. So why choose to, start them after he returns?
Once again.
Or in terms of the symbolism, which is what you both agree on.
Right. So
is that a courtesy?
I'm not sure if it's a courtesy or just the planning that they couldn't bring something together so fast. So I think probably in a way it's to reduce the concern of the United States of trying to do something when the president's out of the country. That's why the United States has during a short period of time, has 3 aircraft carrier battle group, a strike group in the Pacific region. I think it could be to make sure the West do not misinterpret this whole thing as trying to take advantage of the absence of the president in Taiwan and do that after he returns. But on the other hand, I'm not sure, with all this speculation of having an exercise kicking off, I'm actually not sure if they will actually kick off because they have to demonstrate something for domestic consumption, as Ronan said. I'm not sure if the military exercise will achieve that objective because they tried it twice already, and Taiwan's life continues, and nobody's intimidated. They might explain, once again, demonstrate to their own country that we did this. In this case, since the president's already returned,
Tony, let me ask you, because the reports of the intelligence assessments is based on the fact that it's busier around Taiwan, and there has been a Russian naval fleet which has come very close to Taiwan's contiguous zone, which is 24 nautical miles from the baseline, from the coast, and that they apparently did conduct joint simulated attacks on, quote, foreign vessels and aircraft with a Chinese destroyer nearby. All these military drills have been unilateral by China around Taiwan. What's the likelihood of Russia joining in?
I think it's very high likelihood. Just like just over a month ago, Chinese and Russian aircraft intruded into Alaska's ADIZ, if you recall. So I think this is similar to prior to World War II when the Axis power was forming up together. And we see that happening now, and China is undertaking the largest military expansion since 1930s when Hitler did it. So this could very well be a marching tour war by China. Therefore, we should be worried, and the joint operation between China and Russia, I suspect, will continue and increase because...
If it was targeted at Taiwan, though, Tony, would it lose a symbolism and become something more substantial?
I worry if this isn't something that Putin has reached an agreement with Xi. You support me in Ukraine, I support you on this end, on the Pacific side. once again, just guessing. It looks like something has been agreed upon. Otherwise, Russian ships wouldn't come this close. So just by the fact that we're seeing it, there might be some kind of agreement between Xi and Putin on mutual support.
Okay, now President Lai's first destination was Hawaii. Let's take a look at what he said there.
I am grateful to the United States for its assistance and support provided under the principles of safety, dignity, comfort, and convenience, which ensure the success of this trip. I'm especially delighted that the first stop of this visit is Hawaii.
Ronan, so you heard it from the president there.
Yeah.
How significant is it that Hawaii was the very first stop for President Lai?
Yeah, it carries very significant implications. So, number one, Hawaii is home to U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. So it highlights, Taiwan's strategic importance in terms of, U.S. defense strategy. But we also see that, the U.S. intentionally keep it at a low profile, suggesting that while Taiwan's importance is being recognized, we also want to make sure that we did the things, at a rather low profile, so that we don't want to make it too provocative for China. We know that this is the thing that we must do, but
So how did they keep it low key?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah. So basically, there's no officials, higher officials, greeting Lai in that very occasion, right? So a lot of things were happening, under the table, not in public. Yeah, but we can see that, they obviously there's tons of meetings and preparations going on. Otherwise, this would not be possible.
Tony, and so, also Lai didn't make any public remarks during Hawaii, so really trying to keep it low key. But Tony, a little bit more on the significance. Ronan mentioned, it basically tells you how important Taiwan's defense is to the US. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree so. And the fact that he stopped there, he also brought attention to the Republic of China, Taiwan. And I think his visit to Pearl Harbor, for example, he emphasized Taiwan is the real ally partner during World War II with Americans, because China has been trying to steal the glory and changing the history. When Jiang Zemin visited the same spot in 1997, he's promoting how we are your long-term friends. But the fact is, Taiwan, Republic of China is the one, and the fact that the wreath actually says the President of Republic of China, Taiwan. So in 1941, when the Flying Tigers started showing up in China, and then eventually that was converted into the actual 14th Air Force. And U.S. bombers were flying from China to bomb Japan in the end. So all this cooperation through the years truly is Republic of China, because the People's Republic of China, the communist side, did not even exist until 1949. Therefore, I think this type of activity once again highlights Taiwan and correctly reflect the history and not allow China to steal that glory.
Now, President Lai laid out the goals of his trip before departing Taiwan. Take a look.
这次出访是开创价值外交的新时代，民主、和平、繁荣是国人的期待，也是我身为总统必须要积极去推展的价值。我将跟友邦朋友以民主、和平与繁荣的价值，持续拓展合作，深化伙伴关系。 让世界看见台湾不仅仅是民主典范，也是促进全球和平稳定、繁荣发展的关键力量。
Ronan, so that was a message of the whole trip, which was democracy, prosperity and peace. So how do the Hawaii and Guam stopovers in particular, how do they tie into the theme of the trip?
Yeah, so I would like to first make the point that by visiting Guam, basically Guam is a very important military hub, right? So that signifies the importance of the U.S.-Taiwan security ties. And I would actually like to use the remarks made by Lai to actually make it clean and simple in terms of what is the takeaway message that he wants to deliver.
To China?
Yeah,
China.
China and also to the international community.
Okay.
Basically, number one, value, right? Taiwan is a vibrant democracy. So like Taiwan, alongside with the like-minded states, are going to join the force to deter authoritarianism. And number two, security. You try to make sure that, showing to the world that Taiwan is self-reliant and a stable partner of the U.S. defense priorities. And number three, economy, right? So he also mentions that we are going to promote Taiwan's economic ties with, again, like-minded states, and especially in, technology sector like the semiconductors. And finally, diplomacy. Taiwan is not going to be a troublemaker. We are going to increase our military, our international presence. And then we're going to make friends, and we will reduce reliance, on any single ally. Yeah.
Tony, your assessment.
Yeah, this is what he said is saying that, hey, we share common core value, and that's important. He also mentioned later on in another speech that Taiwan and the United States is working together to prevent war. Okay, that's very important because this is a war that can only be started by China, because the United States is not going to attack China, Taiwan is not going to attack China. So with this massive military buildup, once again, Lai emphasizes we're working together to maintain peace, and that's an important message.
Right, and so what message do you think China is getting? Do you think it's getting the message not to try anything?
Yeah, even though China is crying about sovereignty and all that, and I think they deliberately try to confuse people about United States One China policy and China's One China principle. Because in United States One China policy, it's clearly stated that the United States does not recognize China's sovereignty over Taiwan. Taiwan is not China's, and that is our official policy. Taiwan's sovereignty is yet to be determined, and that has to be determined by the people of Taiwan. So this is a clear policy, even though China said the United States is trying to intrude in their sovereignty and territorial integrity. No, the United States never acknowledged Taiwan is yours to start with, therefore you don't have sovereignty over Taiwan, and Taiwan is not part of your territorial integrity. So I think China continued to say the United States agreed, this one China, therefore Taiwan's mine. No, the United States never said that. So hopefully this message continues to enforce China's thinking that, hey, listen, I'm not touching your sovereignty. Mainland China is still yours. We're not touching that part.
Okay. And Ronan?
I also want to go back to Tony's brilliant comment. I think, China is not going to be very happy about all of this. But one thing that they can take notice is if the international community, including the US and Taiwan, can show very high level of internal cohesion, then China have to take notice. So there's like-minded states, they are standing in solidarity. So if we want to invade Taiwan, we have to think twice.
Now, while China portrays US support for such stopovers by the Taiwan president as, quote, meddling in Taiwan affairs and interfering in China's internal affairs, and calling on the US to, quote, stop supporting and condoning the separatist forces of Taiwan independence, Admiral Samuel Paparo, commander of the US Indo-Pacific Command, has been clarifying the US position. In a recent Brookings Institute event, he said that the US policy is to protect Taiwan's right to self-determination and to ensure there is no unilateral change to the status quo. He mentioned his responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act are be ready. Take a look.
Particularly for a commander that is in the field in command of forces who, in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979, is charged with the responsibility of being ready, and that is the law that directs the Defense Department with being ready. We must be ready today, tomorrow, next month, next year, and onward. We sometimes get so wrapped up in the Taiwan question that we forget the policy of the United States of America. And for that reason, too, we get into a misunderstanding loop with the PRC, who don't believe, we don't believe, the policy of the United States. But the policy has not changed. My job is the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979. Be ready.
Tony, you mentioned before that, the U.S. One China policy, or essentially U.S. policy on Taiwan and China, is that it does not recognize China's claim that Taiwan is part of China. What would you say is the core for people to understand the substance of the Taiwan Relations Act?
Once again, the Admiral said it perfectly. Taiwan's right of self-determination is the core. So everything the United States does is toward that end, that Taiwan, the people on Taiwan, has a choice of their own future, not one that's imposed by China or by the United States. So Taiwan's people get to pick their own future. I think that is the main basis of everything the United States does.
Mm. And so, Ronan, what's your view, on the importance of the TRA and understanding what this policy means?
Yeah, so the TRA actually obligates the U.S. to support Taiwan's defense, for example, by providing arms and training and so forth and so on. And also, it wants to make sure that peace and stability in the region or across the Taiwan Strait can be ensued, by the U.S. and by also the cooperation from the Taiwanese side. But I also want to make sure that, make it very clear that, but this TRA also does not guarantee a direct military intervention. Yeah.
There's some ambiguity in there, but I also wanted to drill down to, the issue of arms sales. So China has recently criticized every single arms sale that has been announced by the Biden administration, coming obviously to the end of its term. But what does the TRA say? That's very important. It says about arms sales and also the third communique.
Yeah, so basically this TRA tries to ensure that Taiwan will possess the capability to engage in self-defense.
Yeah, so it's proportionate to essentially the militarization of the Taiwan Strait, or the threat that comes from China. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Tony, let's move to the Singapore ambassador's comments. So at the Brookings event, there was a Singapore ambassador to the US who essentially doubted the US's capability to defend Taiwan. He said that Taiwan can only be defended from Taiwan and that the US is too far away. Guam is too far away. Even Kadena in Japan is too far away. Why you were a war plans officer in the Pentagon and at headquarters Pacific Air Forces. Can you tell us your view on this issue?
Yeah, Admiral Paparo actually immediately said, hey, I don't share your pessimism, because he knows. And he mentioned that the United States have war plans that cover different contingencies, and that the United States has forward deployed to many places near Taiwan and already. And and he also mentioned aircraft carriers can be much near Taiwan. As far as war plans, I've been plans officer for quite a bit of my military life, and I've seen the kind of plans that gets into place. So basically, Admiral Paparo is absolutely right. United States have war plans that cover different contingencies, and to allow the commander who's in charge of defending this region to pick what to use based on enemy action. So we do war gaming to do it on paper on the planning side, then we do actual exercises to validate those actions that military needs to do. So he's right. He said, I'm confident with our ability to execute this and prevent China. He said, I have answers to anything China rocket force, Air Force, Navy can throw at me. And what he meant is he has a counter for everything China can throw.
And Ronan, we started off talking about possible blockade. Many people think that China will use this as a means to sort of pressure Taiwan. So, for example, the opposition Kuomintang says that China only needs to stop 3 or 4 oil tankers, perhaps in the South China Sea, to have Taiwan, on its knees. So, in that situation, however, Admiral Paparo is very confident that they could break a blockade. What's your assessment?
Yeah, so I actually agree with the general and also Tony's assessment that, number one, blockading Taiwan is a very difficult and daunting task. And number two, even if,
Given Taiwan's energy needs?
so give it, so one thing is that blocking Taiwan is very difficult due to the, the geolocation and also, some of the advantage enjoyed by Taiwan and also the incoming help from the U.S. So if we get ready, blockading Taiwan will be a very difficult task. But this is not to say that we can take it lightly. We actually, heavily relying on the supply of energy and so forth and so on. So that's the reason why, get ready so that, blockading Taiwan will become only, a possible scenario that we try to entertain in a war game, in the simulation. It won't become a reality. So I think that, by getting ready, we need to make sure the following things that we will try to strive. Number one, Taiwan needs to make sure that, we have, for example, enough energy supply. Tony just mentioned that even in like the, war planning, the U.S. is not going to come to your rescue like next day, right? You need to get ready. For example, it could, take maybe 2 weeks or even a month to get the U.S. to come here, right? So Taiwan needs to get ready for that. So we also need to make sure that the international route will be secured, by the Taiwanese and also the American forces.
And the international community.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we'll have to end it there. So sorry, Tony Hu and Ronan Fu for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.